Good day everyone, I'm Vince Carl Aldaya, a Bachelor of Secondary Education 2, major in Social Studies. So for today's video, I'll be discussing the culture, the meaning, characteristics, and functions. So without further ado, let's begin. Let's now give the meaning of what culture is. Culture is used in a special sense in anthropology and sociology. It refers to the sum of human beings' lifeways, their behavior, beliefs, feelings, thought. It connotes everything that is acquired by them as social beings. Sometimes culture is used in popular discourse to refer to a celebration or an evening of entertainment, as when one speaks of a cultural show in this sense. Culture is identified with aesthetics or the fine arts such as dance, music, or drama. This is also different from the technical meaning of the word culture. Culture has been defined in a number of ways. There is no consensus among sociologists and anthropologists regarding the definition of culture. One of the most comprehensive definitions of the term culture was provided by the British anthropologist Edward Taylor. He defined culture as that complex whole which includes knowledge, belief, art, morals, law, custom, and any other capabilities and habits acquired by man as a member of society. I truly agree of what Edward Taylor definition. It is because it's really understandable that all humans has its own knowledge, belief, and we humans practice art, and we also follow morals and law. So let's now move on to the characteristics of culture. First is learned behavior. Not all behavior is learned, but most of it is learned. Combining one's hair, standing in line, telling jokes, criticizing the president, and going to the movie all constitute behavior which had to be learned. Sometimes, the term conscious learning and unconscious learning are used to distinguish the learning. For example, the ways in which a small child learns to handle a tyrannical father or a rejecting mother often affects the way in which that child, 10 or 15 years later, handles his relationship with other people. And last is, some behavior is obvious. People can be seen going to football games, eating with forks, or driving automobiles. As you can see, there are two behaviors with in close parentheses. The words are the overt and covert behavior. So what is overt behavior? Overt behavior is a kind of behavior that is going to be seen or people can be easily seen. While the covert behavior which is not openly visible to other people. Both may be, of course, it can be learned. Culture exists in the minds or habits of the members of society. Culture is the shared ways of doing and thinking. There are degrees of visibility of cultural behavior ranging from the regularized activities of person to their internal reasons for so doing. In other words, we cannot see culture as such, we can only see human behavior. This behavior occurs in regular, pattern fashion, and it is called culture. Number 3 is culture is a pattern of learned behavior. The definition of culture indicated that the learned behavior of people is patterned. Each person's behavior often depends upon some particular behavior of someone else. The point is that, as a general rule, behaviors are somewhat integrated or organized with related behavior of other persons. The good thing about this is culture is not just all about learning behavior, or behavior can be learned, but sometimes culture really influence other people, what to wear, how to behave, and other important things in order for us not to be judged in society. Culture is the products of behavior. Culture learnings are the products of behavior. As a person behaves, there occur changes in him. He acquires the ability to swim, to feel hatred towards someone, or to sympathize with someone. They have grown out of his previous behavior. In both ways, then, human behavior is the result of behavior. The experience of other people are impressed on one as he grows up. And also, many of these traits and abilities have grown out of his own past behaviors. Because of our past behaviors, we can easily understand and we can easily learn from it. If we did the wrong thing in the past, and we can easily change it into a good one in the future. Fifth is culture includes attitudes, values, knowledge. There is widespread error in the thinking of many people who tend to regard the ideas, attitudes, and notions which they have as their own. It is easy to overestimate the uniqueness of one's own attitudes and ideas. When there is agreement with other people, it is largely unnoticed. But when there is disagreement or difference, one is usually conscious of it. Your differences, however, may also be cultural. For example, you suppose you are a Catholic and the other person is a Protestant. Six is culture also includes material objects. Man's behavior results in creating objects. Men were behaving when they made these things. To make these objects required numerous and various skill, which human beings gradually built up through the ages. Man has invented something else, and so on. Occasionally, one encounters the view that man does not really make steel or a battleship. All these things first existed in a state nature. Man merely modified their form, changed them from a state in which they were to the state in which he now uses them. The chair was first a tree which man surely did not make, but the chair is more than trees, and the jet airplane is more than the iron ore, and so forth. Seventh, culture is shared by the members of society. The patterns of learned behavior and the results of behavior are possessed not by one or a few persons, but usually by a large proportion. I've said earlier that people really influence others. It is because we shared the same vibes such as knowledge, behaviors, and also beliefs. That is why through other people we can easily understand better in one society we are in. And persons may share some part of culture uniquely. For example, as Americans do the Christian religion, to some persons Christianity is the all-important, predominating idea in life. To others, it is less preoccupying or important, and to still others, it is one of marginal significance only. 8. Culture is superorganic. Culture is sometimes called superorganic. It implies the culture is somehow superior to nature. For example, a tree means different things to the botanist who studies it, the old woman who uses it for shade in the late summer afternoon, the farmer who picks its fruit, the motorist who collides with it, and the young lovers who carve their initial in its trunk. The same physical objects and physical characteristics, in other words, may constitute a variety of quite different cultural objects and cultural characteristics. 9th, Culture is pervasive. It touches every aspect of life. The pervasiveness of culture is manifest in two ways. First, culture provides an unquestioned context within which individual action and response take place. Not only emotional action but relational actions are governed by cultural norms. Second, culture pervades social activities and institutions. According to Ruth Benedict, a culture, like an individual, is more or less consistent pattern of thought and action. With each culture, there come into being characteristic purposes not necessarily shared by other types of society. In obedience to these purposes, each person further consolidates its experiences, and in proportion to the urgency of these drives, the heterogeneous items of behavior take more and more congruous shape. 10. Culture is a way of life. Culture means simply the way of life of people or their design for living. Cluckhorn and Kelly define it in his sense. A culture is a holistically derived system of explicit and implicit design for living, which tends to be shared by all or specially designed members of a group. So, what is explicit culture and implicit culture? Let's define first what explicit culture means. Explicit culture refers to similarities in word and action which can be directly observed, while implicit culture exists in abstract forms which are not quite obvious. 11. Culture is a human product. Culture is not a force operating by itself and independent of the human actors. There is an unconscious tendency to defy culture, to endow it with life and treat it as a thing. Culture is a creation of society in interaction and depends for its existence upon the continuance of society. In a strict sense, therefore, culture does not do anything on its own. It does not cause the individual to act in a particular way, nor does it make the normal individual into a maladjusted one. Culture, in short, is a human product. It is not independently endowed with life. 12 is culture is idealistic. Culture embodies the ideas and norms of a group. It is a sum total of the ideal patterns and norms of behavior of a group. Culture consists of the intellectual, artistic, and social ideas and institutions which the members of society profess and to which they strive to conform. 13. Culture is transmitted among members of society. The cultural ways are learned by persons from persons. For example, the style of dress, political views, and the use of recent labor-saving devices. One does not acquire a behavior pattern spontaneously, he learns it. That means that someone teaches him and he learns. Much of the learning process, both for the teacher and the learner, is quiet, unconscious, unintentional, or accidental. 14. Culture is continually changing. There is one fundamental and inescapable attribute of culture, the fact of unending change. Some societies are sometimes changing slowly, and hence, in comparison to other societies, seem not to be changing at all. But they are changing, even though not obviously so. Change is already part of our everyday lives, and change is constant. So we are experiencing change little by little, and every single day we cannot obviously see it, but little by little we can feel it. 15. Culture is variable. Culture varies from society to society, group to group. Hence, we say culture of India or England, for their culture varies from group to group within the same society. There are subcultures within a culture, cluster of patterns which are both related to general culture of the society and yet distinguishable. from it are called subcultures. 16. Culture is an integrated system. Culture possesses an order and system. Its various parts are integrated with each other, and any new element which is introduced is also integrated. 17. Language is the chief vehicle of culture. Man lives not only in the present but also in the past and future. He is able to do this because he possesses language which transmits to him what was learned in the past and enables him to transmit the accumulated wisdom to the next generation. To conclude, culture is everything which is socially learned and shared by the members of society. It is culture that, in the wide focus of the world, distinguishes individual from individual, group from group, and society. Following are some of the important functions of culture. First, culture defines situation. Each culture has many subtle cues which define each situation. It reveals whether one should prepare to fight, run, laugh, or make love. For example, suppose someone approaches you with right hand and outstretched at waist level. What does this mean? That he wishes to shake hands in friendly greeting is perfectly obvious. Obvious that is to anyone familiar with our culture. But in other place or time, the outstretched hand mean hastily or warning. One does not know what to do in a situation until he has defined the situation. Each society has its insult and fighting words. The cues which define situation appear in infinite variety. A person who moved from one society into another will spend many years misreading the cues. For example, laughing at the wrong places. Second, culture defines attitude, values, and goals. Each person learns in his culture what is good, true, and beautiful. Attitude, values, and goals are defined by the culture, while the individual normally learns them as unconsciously as he learns the language. Attitudes are tendencies to feel and act in certain ways, while values are measures of goodness or desirability. For example, we value private property, government, and many other things and experiences. And lastly, goals are those attainments which our values define as worthy. Example, winning the race, gaining the affections of a particular girl, or becoming president of the country. By proving certain goals and ridiculing others, the culture channels individuals' ambitions. In this way, culture determines the goals of life. Third, culture defines myth, legends, and supernatural. Myths and legends are an important part of every culture. They may inspire, reinforce effort, and sacrifice and bring comfort and bereavement. Whether they are true is sociologically unimportant. Ghosts are real to people who believe in them and who act upon this belief. Culture also provides the individual with a ready-made view of the universe. The nature of divine power and the important moral issues are defined by the culture. The individual does not have to select, but it is trained in a Christian, Buddhist, Hindu, Muslim, or some other religious tradition. These traditions gives answers for the major things imponderable of life and the fortuitous the individual to meet life's crisis. Fourth, culture provides behavior patterns. The individual need not go through painful trial and error, learning to know what foods can be eaten without poisoning himself, or how to live among people without fear. He finds a ready-made set of patterns awaiting him which he needs only to learn and follow. The culture maps out the path to matrimony. The individual does not have to wonder how one secures a mate. He knows the procedure defined by his culture. Lastly, culture and society. The relationship between society, culture, and personality is stressed by Ralph Linton. According to him, a society is an organized group of individuals, a culture is an organized group of learned responses, and an individual is a living organism capable of independent thought, feeling, and action. But with his independence limited and all his resources profoundly modified by contact with the society and culture which he develops. One must always keep in mind the interdependence and the reciprocal relationship between culture and society. Each is distinguishable concept in which the patterning and organization of the whole is more important than any of the component parts. So that's all for my video, guys. I hope you like it. Till my next video. Bye.